I work with Youth Build New Bedford, and basically I've been working with youth in this community for about 14 years, and I agree we shouldn't badger teachers, but many people that wear a uniform, if you wear a Celtics uniform, it doesn't make you a player. People with certificates to teach, it doesn't define them as a teacher. A teacher is a calling, it's a profession, and part of the problem is, there's a McKinsey report. The report states that the difference between, the disparity between, let me get it exactly right, the achievement gap between effective teachers and ineffective teachers is far greater than the disparity between bad schools and good schools. So basically what that report says is that when you have teachers that are effective teachers, they have a greater difference and play a greater impact on the students. Unfortunately, the things I've seen working at Youth Build is many of the students that come to me have had negative experiences at the school. I don't believe that people intend to have badger students or become bad teachers. I don't know what the reason is. I think the best thing for those students in the school is to get rid of those quote-unquote teachers who are not really teachers. They're wearing the uniform, they have a certificate, but they're doing more damage than good. A teacher on average sees about 100 students a day. That's 5 classes, and you have many teachers in the school system that are not really teaching these students. And this is a reality that teachers will acknowledge. It's not across the board, but those teachers that are doing that are hurting the real teachers in the school system. So that's something that has to be brought to the table. It has to be transparent, and it has to be dealt with. And that's a real reality, because when you have people that do not care, they end up impacting students' lives. You have students that are passed along from kindergarten on that can't read, that were dropped out at 8th grade, that cannot read at my daughter's level. My daughter's in 1st grade and can read better than some of the students I see that have been passed through New Bedford school systems. So that tells me that something's wrong, because there was no red flag. There's a sign that they're going to be a dropout, as some of these people have spoke about, and it's there. So something needs to change with that from the beginning, and there's many other things that could happen.
Thank you, Mr. Andrade. Once again, we'd ask you to save your applause for the end of the forum. Our following question will begin with Mr. Clark and will be asked by Melissa.
What is your position on charter schools?
Once again, what is your position on charter schools?
You know, charter schools, I really do not have a problem with them if the state would fund them as individual schools. What happens now, Melissa, is anyone can petition the Department of Education here in the Commonwealth to say, we want to have a charter school. So you can get people from Westport, from Acushnet, from Dartmouth, and a few from New Bedford to band together to say they want to have a charter school here in New Bedford, which I think is wonderful. However, what happens is they'll take the money from the New Bedford School Department to fund that charter school. And so I really believe that the students in the New Bedford public school system lose out because the resources are being taken away from the school district, placed into a charter school, which is wonderful. I'm sure the teachers are wonderful, I'm sure the kids are wonderful, but to me, I think if the state really wants to support charter schools, the idea of taking the money from the already struggling budget-wise public schools, especially in the cities, is not the way to go. So, you know, I hope I can say that I support the idea of a charter school, but the way we do it here in Massachusetts pits the school departments against the charter schools, and I never think that's a healthy thing when we all have the same goal of educating our children. So I would say that sums up my position.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Next, Mr. Andrade.
My daughter's in a charter school right now, and I'm a Dema, and I actually think the model works. I think that the money that goes for those students, for example, at Youth Build, there's students that are in New Bedford High School that the school is getting credit for them students, and we're educating them and getting them GEDs, and the school actually takes credit for those students' graduation. So the 53% graduation rate that you hear about New Bedford High School has, the work is being done at Youth Build New Bedford. We have no problem with that, because we want to educate the youth of the community. Now, in a charter school situation, we have students, they get a certain amount of money per student, about $11,000 per student in the school system, which is far too little. We pay $30,000 at Dartmouth House of Correction for an inmate. So we spend about 3 times as much to incarcerate someone as to educate them. So that's a flaw in the system overall. But when we're talking about taking money away from the schools, them students are not in the schools, so that ratio they get paid per student, so it's not really taken away from the school because the student's leaving the school, so the class ratio is going down. Additionally, you have different models of school systems within the city that they can learn from. Like, these schools have innovative policies, they have different curriculums, and as they have successes, they can share successes with the school system. It shouldn't be seen as a competition. It should be seen as we're striving to educate our community and make our community better. And there's different strokes for different folks. Different people thrive in different environments. So I think it's important to have different opportunities as long as they remain public. And as anyone can get into the school, I think that's great, and I think that our school system overall should evolve to start looking at the ways these charter schools are actually operating, because they have a greater success rate than a number of public schools. Part of it is they're smaller schools. Students in large schools such as New Bedford High School, they get lost in the numbers, they get lost in the shuffle. There's a lot of different complicated issues that happen in big schools, so that's my feeling.
Thank you, Mr. Andrade. Next, Ms. Usach.
Thank you. Well, I believe in a parent's right to choose, whether they choose to homeschool a student, put them in a parochial school, a charter school, or in a public school. But my loyalties have to lie with my public school. That's who I represent. However, I would like to see people ask our legislators to look at how we fund the Chapter 70, because as you know, the funding does come off of that. And that does deplete the funding that we have to work with in our public school system. In addition to that, if the student does not do well in a charter school, a lot of times they do come back to New Bedford schools to be educated. So I would like to see us work for having the funding changed. That will take a while, because at this point in time, we have no recourse, and you have to keep in mind that a charter school, although it is a charter school, is part of the New Bedford School District. So I also cannot understand, as a sitting body of the school committee, why from time to time we don't share best practices. Some of those charter schools are doing really good, innovative forms of education programs. So I would like to see us partner sometimes and see what they're doing different, so that we would have a wider prospect of what they're doing well and what we're doing well, and working together, because that money that is coming off Chapter 70 is district money, and that charter school is still part of New Bedford's system. But on the whole, my loyalties lie with our New Bedford students. The funding should go there, and I'd like to see the state fund charter schools in a different manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Usach. Next, Mr. Livramento.
Charter schools offer an incubator for new ideas, for new means of thinking, new methods of instruction. And I think in that respect, they operate very well. They also offer a choice to our citizens within the city of New Bedford. They go through the process of allowing parents, in particular, to choose which particular school they like to go to, or they like their children to go to. However, I agree that taking that funding away from the public school system really hampers the public school system in really continuing to compete with charter schools. And the reason is there are a number of things that happen within the public school system in terms of trying to provide an education for the entire spectrum of their student body that sometimes charter schools don't have to deal with. There are a number of students who have problems in within our public school system who, the public school system has to really work with. Charter schools, they can choose a little differently. And all too often they get a different, I would say, a different type of student there. And they have a lot more support from their parents. So we need to change how we fund this. And that's where we really need to work with the state. We really need to go